ready to get started. We're ready.
Yeah, and I think Blair is also going to be, helping a lot with this presentation, and she's actually going.
Yes, sorry, Blair Kleinman as well is
Yeah,
going to
she's
be
that.
co-presenting.
Blair, if you want to go ahead and share your screen, and we'll switch off. So some slides she's going to handle because this is really one of her specialties. But I'll introduce the presentation.
Hey, let me see, share screen. Oh. Sorry guys, I just had to reset my laptop, so I have to, let me see. I have to go to system preferences. Hold on.
I can share my screen if you want me to go through and just tell me. Okay, let's do that. Okay. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay, everyone. All right, let me move over here. So I want to thank everybody for being here today. Let me put this down. And we are really excited, and we'll try to move through this as quickly as possible while giving you the full experience, because I know that you have a very engaged activity afterwards. So as Eddie was saying, I've been involved for the last 3 years or more than 3 years now with the Food Forest Gardens with Education Fund in one shape or form. It started off with student internship projects. And now we have 2 grants through USDA and EPA that we're working on with Education Fund. So we've really enjoyed our experiences in the schools and getting to meet the teachers and seeing the students really engage with the food forest. So that's been fantastic. Now, Blair Kleinman is involved with this project as well, both projects. And as I mentioned, one of her specialties is entomology. So she studies insects. And both of us have connection to Miami-Dade County Public Schools. I have children in both elementary and middle school. Blair is a former substitute teacher in Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Both of her parents are teachers, and her grandfather apparently was the former superintendent in Miami-Dade County Public Schools a couple of decades ago. So she's a long-standing generational connection with Miami-Dade County Public Schools, and we're very proud of her, and she just got accepted to the PhD program at FIU. So we are really expecting great things from her. So our title is Exploring Beneficial Insects in Your Food Forest Garden and How We Can Appreciate Them More. So Blair, take it away, and let me know when I need to move forward.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rockwell. So I'm going to begin with a brief introduction to insects and how they can be beneficial to us in our gardens and our food forests. Insects can help us by acting as pollinators, ensuring crop production, serving as decomposers of organic matter and cycling nutrients into usable forms, serving as biological control agents, keeping pests under control, and serving directly as materials and food sources, even helping medical research. And insects have a multitude of purposes with a huge diversity of which we have barely scratched the surface of. And that's why conserving their biodiversity and preventing their extinction is so important. So insects are the largest group in the animal category, with more than 1 million species on the planet, living in almost every environment from glaciers to volcanoes. And given this diversity, there are some which pose harm to humans by either spreading diseases or damaging human structures and plants. The class Insecta is in phylum Arthropoda, and they all have segmented bodies, exoskeletons, and at least 3 pairs of legs. Other classes in Arthropoda are arachnid or spiders, centipedes, and millipedes. Class Insecta has 29 orders, and they are grouped and distinguished by physical characteristics, although recently DNA sequencing is changing how these phylogenies are grouped. And so you can see this is a phylogenetic graph on how different orders of insects evolved over time and how they're classified. Okay. So to ID an insect, you observe the physical similarities and differences between insects. All insects have an exoskeleton or a shell-like covering on the outside of their body and are separated into 3 segments: the head, thorax, and the abdomen. The distinguishing characteristics separating Insecta from other classes are that they always have 6 legs or 3 pairs of legs in their adult stage and 2 antennae on the head. Next slide.
Sorry, there we go.
So a way to separate insects into their orders is to look at their mouths to see what they feed on. There are 4 separate mouth parts of insects, and sometimes even changing what mouth parts they have between their life stages. Chewing insects use a mandible to cut, tear, crush, and chew food. So think of a grasshopper with their really large, pronounced mandibles. Siphoning insects feed by sucking fluids without piercing their food. So think of a butterfly with a long proboscis that they use to feed on nectar within flowers. Piercing and sucking insects pierce food items to suck the fluids out of them. So think of a mosquito, which pierces you and sucks your blood. Sponging insects draw up food like a straw using capillary actions. So think of a housefly, and they feed on fluids and kind of suck it up like a straw. So now I'm gonna just briefly touch on classification and some of the most important orders of insects, starting with Hymenoptera. These are the wasps, bees, and ants, and it's the 3rd largest order. And in my opinion, the most beneficial to humans because they are composed of pollinators, parasites of pests, and the honey producers, the bees. These are social insects. They always have 4 wings and a thin waist separating the segments between their bodies. And so here you can see a picture of a parasitic Hymenoptera. They are used as biological control of pests because they inject their eggs inside of the pest or the host to feed on and kill. And on the right is a picture of the predatory trap jaw ants. And these are all specimens collected from Dr. Rockwell's food forest research. This trap jaw ant evolved its mandibles, and they are 2,300 times faster than the blink of an eye, and they can snap shut at 145 miles per hour. And so Lepidoptera on the left is the order for moths, butterflies, and skippers. And the way you differentiate them is moths are usually small nocturnal insects. Butterflies are usually feeding flowers in the daytime and are important pollinators. And skippers are the intermediate form between the moths and the butterflies. Lepidoptera is the 2nd largest order. They all have microscopic scales on their wings, and the adults feed on nectar and flowers and are important pollinators. But some larval stages of caterpillars are considered pests. Okay. Next slide. So looking at Hemiptera now, these are what we are technically referring to when we call things a bug. These are the true bugs. They have a wide variety. They can be pests and predators. This includes cicadas, aphids, plant hoppers, bed bugs, and shield bugs. They always have a sucking mouth part, if you see the top right picture. And many are plant-feeding pests, which can transmit diseases. Some are predators sucking juices out of other insects. They can look like beetles, but their wings always overlap, and they have a beak mouth part, if you can see. That is a distinguishing characteristic of Hemipteras. And the picture on the left, is a scale. These are pests in the Hemiptera order, but they are immobile. They lose their arms and legs, and they just hunker down and suck the juices out of the leaves. So they don't have a beak, but that's different. Okay, so now looking at Diptera, the flies, these are true flies. They always have 2 wings. So every other order of insect has 4 wings. Flies always have 2. Usually small, soft bodies with sucking mouth parts. They're very diverse. They can be pests, vectors of disease, predators, pollinators, and even parasites of other insect pests. The larvae are decomposers and can be agricultural pests like fruit flies. Important beneficial insects is Syrphidae, which we call hoverflies because they hover in one spot like a helicopter. And the adults are important pollinators of crops and mimic bees, if you see the picture on the right. But the larvae are really great predators of garden pests like aphids. And you can see the bottom right, syrphid larvae eating an aphid. So Coleoptera, the beetles. This is the largest order with 40% of insects and 25% of all known animals. They are usually large, brightly colored, characterized by their front pair of wings that are hardened into wing cases, which we call elytra, and they hide the second rear pair of wings, and their wings don't overlap like the hemipterans do, but instead meet in a straight line, if you can see in these photos. Some can produce light, like the lightning bugs, which is actually a misnomer because they are not bugs, they're not hemipterans, they're beetles. They can produce sound, some are aquatic. They can be predators of other insect pests. They can be pests themselves of crops and of trees, and they can spread fungus and plant diseases. So now we're going to talk about the different life stages of insects, and I'm going to cover lepidopterans, again, the moths, butterflies, skippers, because they undergo complete metamorphosis, changing anatomically and physiologically between their life stages. And an interesting thing is that it's been proven that they retain the memories between their larval stages and their adult stages, even though they undergo this complete metamorphosis. The 4 life stages of Lepidoptera is that they change from an egg to a larvae or caterpillar, and these are interchangeable terms, then to a pupa or chrysalis, finally emerging as an adult. And the larvae are what does most of the eating, and they can be pests of plants and flowers as they grow and change throughout their instars. The larval stage is when they are most vulnerable to parasitoids, which inject their eggs inside of them to kill them. The caterpillar will continue to eat as the parasite grows, but eventually dies when the parasitoid emerges. And the adult stages are important in pollination as they visit flowers to feed on nectar.
Okay, everyone, I'm gonna jump back in. I'm going to talk about life stages of a couple of other orders. One is the hemipteran, as Blair mentioned, the true bugs. When we talk about bugs, where a lot of times people include all insects in that, but not all insects are bugs, but all bugs are insects, kind of thing. So they are interesting in that they exhibit this particular order incomplete metamorphosis. And so what does that mean? That means that they really don't pass through the larval stage. So you actually see these instar stages. So starting with the egg, and you just see like little mini versions of the adults keep getting bigger. So these are between the different molting stages, and it's very similar to the adults, but they tend to have, a lot of species have a head that's larger than in proportion to its body, or the wings are incomplete. And you can see that in the upper right-hand picture with the aphids. You can see the adult aphids have those long wings, and the little instar stages around them do not. And so it's the same thing with the squash bug below, is that they have incomplete wings. Typically, they just look like mini versions of the adults, but they haven't quite fully formed yet. And we wanted to bring this another example, the dipterans. A lot of you are familiar with the mosquitoes. The dipterans demonstrate a complete metamorphosis where they do have the embryo, the larva stage. We also wanted to show you that some insects actually do have an aquatic, habitat when they are in the larval stage, which is, definitely true of mosquitoes. And if all of us who have gone through the whole Zika, trying to reduce the amount of mosquitoes in our yards, to prevent like a lot of vector diseases are through the mosquito vector, and, including malaria, including dengue. And so taking away like the refuse of water, like that you have around the yard is important for that, because they do lay their eggs in the water and they have the larval stage, they go to the pupal stage, and then the adult emerges out of the water. So that taking away the water is a critical component of keeping the mosquito populations down. And on the right-hand side, you have the Drosophila fly, which is a fruit fly, which, as you know, Blair mentioned, fruit flies can be quite a pest in the agricultural industry. They go through the complete larval stage, and we're actually similar to house flies, that they have that larval stage where they look like a worm. And sometimes they can have, like, you know, depending on the species, little legs. They call them prolegs. They're not true legs. Okay. And Blair will introduce this.
Great. So I'm going to just briefly touch upon the difference between beneficial and pest insects. And so 97% of insects are actually considered beneficial to us and the environment. So only a small percentage is anything that we need to be concerned about. They provide biological control of pests by our predatory and our parasitoid insects. And beneficial insects also pollinate crops. They can aid in making medicine and pharmaceuticals, produce silk, honey, and wax, and act as decomposers by breaking down organic matter. And so encouraging beneficial insects by providing suitable living conditions and attractive plants is a pest control strategy used in agriculture and forms the basis of my thesis research, looking at weeds as insectary plants. And parasitoids feed on nectar and flowers as adults. So having floral resources increases their populations as well as pollinator populations. So these are just some pictures of the most common pests: mealybugs, whiteflies, aphids, and the bottom right, scales. These are all hemipterans. Again, they hunker down and just suck plant juices, but they all are susceptible to parasitoids, like this parasitoid wasp on the other two photos, so which feed on flowers. So providing these floral resources can increase the parasitoids and help to keep your pest populations under control.
Okay, really quickly, guys, because I know we're getting into crunch time for you to start your activity, but another activity that could be complementary to what you are doing today is journaling. I call it journaling for the bugs. Although, as we said, like I took poetic license because not all bugs, not all insects are bugs. But anyway, the materials that you will need for this, and this can be true for an online student, it can also be true for a child who's doing face-to-face, needed some type of journal, clipboard, pens, pencils, crayons, magnifying glass, or a hand lens would be great to see some of those features up close. You know, Blair showed some great photos from the dissecting microscope. You won't get that kind of detail, but it'll help nonetheless be able to bring out some of those other details that are that you can't see as well on it with the naked eye. A jar is very helpful for containing insects like butterflies, grasshoppers that tend to fly off or jump off. A net to catch them, pitfall trap, and I'll show an example of that in the next slide. And you might have seen some of those in the schools to catch the insects. And glue for leaves or flowers that they might be visiting. So this can be for an at-home student, MSO student, or as well for a student who's in person, can actually go out in the garden. Or you can potentially bring a jar in from outside. If you happen to be in a school where they're not allowing a lot of activities outside in the food forest garden, you can capture some and bring the insects into the garden, into the classroom. And there you can see on the bottom, you can see the pitfall trap, where it's like a trap that you typically have water in, where you, and the insects can fall in there and you can catch them that way. Although if you leave them out overnight, the insects will drown. So that, but you can also catch a lot of insects like beetles and ants that way. And so you can, in terms of using the journal activity, you can look for different in the garden while you're in the garden or out in the patio if it's an MSO student, different orders of insects, pests versus beneficial insects, kind of like making those distinctions when you're drawing them and when you are like writing about them in your journal, and different insect activities, because they do a lot of things like pollination, or they happen to be going after other insects, or they happen to be eating something, like if you find a tomato hornworm on tomato plants. So these kind of activities and these distinctions can be things that you incorporate into the journal. And I really highly encourage that connection with the art, with the science, because you really do learn about what an insect is when you have to draw them. And just as an example, you can see here, drawing and writing about insects, and it depends on the age of the child. On the far left, you have a picture and they actually have like an ant farm there, where they're younger children just learning about, insects have segmented bodies. In particular, they're talking about insects. They always have 6 legs. So those kind of things you can bring out with the artwork. In the middle and on the right-hand side, the right-hand side, you actually have some painting, which you guys are gonna be doing today. You can also write like little notes, and I do this in the field too, like writing notes about the observations, the fact that they have hairs on their legs if you're using a hand lens or a magnifying glass. So this kind of activity is something that you can definitely complement with the more art side of the activity where you're actually painting and drawing in the book. But you can also start taking notes, like scientific notes about that individual and what they were doing. So yeah, that's just a very brief description because we have to move on. And just really quickly, I wanted to give you all a few more resources, and some people may recognize these from the other workshop that I did, but this one's more tailored to the insects. And so just really quickly, UF Miami Dade Urban Gardening Extension Office is a great one. They do talk, a lot of, the first two are really focused on a lot of the pests. That's also the Florida Department of Agriculture. And Blair, if you could introduce really quickly the other resources that you have identified that teachers could use in the classroom, that would be great.
Yeah, so I use UF Featured Creatures from the UF Entomology Department. It has these great outlines of all of the insects found in Florida, their life stages, their backgrounds, if they're invasive or not. And then I also use Bug Guide. It helps you identify key out specimens, and that's more of like a scientific approach to looking at insects. And then a really great resource is iNaturalist. If you're probably familiar with it. It has a software that can identify photos, so you can just take a picture of something and it'll give you a suggestion of what it thinks it is. And if the software can't ID it, you can post it, and it's like a forum for amateur entomologists to help you identify what through the picture. So these are all really great resources to help you identify things that I use very often.
Thank you, Blair. And we will stop it here. And we have a lot of people to thank, including the Education Fund and our funders. But thank you so much. And I don't know if we have time for questions, but if we don't, you can go and put them in the chat. I have to leave in a few minutes, and I apologize in advance. I have to go to my son's soccer game. But I can try to answer those before I leave, or you're welcome to, and I'll put my email address in there. And if you have any specific questions, I can also like copy Blair in that communication.
Yeah.
So
Please, let's give a round of applause to Blair and Kara. That was an awesome presentation. And I'm sure you guys are inspired now. I'm glad that we got to see, a scientist okay to draw in a science journal. So that's excellent. We definitely can make, learning fun that way. So thank you for bringing that up. And if you could please share your email, if anybody has any questions, if they could follow up with you.
yeah, great. And also I just wanted to, somebody asked about sharing the PowerPoint. So Debbie has a copy of that. I did send it to her. So however you guys want to share that, that's totally fine with me. If you share it on Google Drive or however it's most convenient, that's totally fine.
Okay, perfect. And
Put my email right now.
Newsletter that we could put that on our next newsletter as well. And yep, we'll definitely share it with everybody that's joining us here today. So thank you, Kara. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Blair, for joining us today for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. If anybody needs to quickly grab their art supplies, go ahead and do it. We're gonna now introduce Tiffany Tompkins, our artist and also food forest leader. She's going to be leading us to do an awesome painting now. So please have your beverage of choice at hand and your painting tools.
Awesome. So really quickly, I'm going to go over what is really important that you guys need right in front of you. You're going to need a pencil. Everyone has their pencil. You guys are going to need your palette. So like we had mentioned before, you can use tin foil and wrap it around one of the smaller canvas that came in your package. So we have a nice decent size for mixing colors. You will need a rag or a paper towel. And lastly, you will need a cup of water. So the water is for cleaning your brush and the rag will be for drying and wiping. So once everyone's ready to start, you can give me a thumbs up and I'll get started. Here's an example of what we'll be painting today. So we're going to paint a beautiful monarch butterfly. You guys have probably seen this butterfly the most in your gardens or food forests. So we're gonna do a bigger scale of this. Don't worry. I just want to say that I'm not a perfect painter, but you know, we're all gonna just be creative and allow ourselves to make mistakes, because that's how we can discover really awesome things in art. So don't stress about the painting. Sometimes that can happen when you're painting. As therapeutic as it is, we always want things to look good. But even if we feel like we're messing up, don't worry. Perfect lines don't matter. I'm gonna teach you guys some techniques on how to paint a little more loosely and blotchy. I think that paintings have more character when it's not perfectly blended and those sorts of things. So let me prepare my camera. So we're gonna be working horizontally. So go ahead and set up your canvas to be horizontal. All right, is everyone ready? Yeah? Okay, perfect. So we're going to start with the drawing. The drawing is the most important part in painting because it's your foundation. I love to refer to reference photos when I'm doing my drawing, because what's really important is eye-hand coordination. Being able to look at what you're going to draw while drawing it makes things a little easier and more accurate. So can I share my screen? Let me see. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Awesome. So let's refer to this butterfly for our drawing. So first, let's start off by finding the center of the canvas. We're gonna connect one corner to the corner diagonal, and same for the other side. So you're gonna get a nice big X, okay? And in the center of your X, you're gonna have your centerpiece. That's where we're gonna be drawing the body of the butterfly. Okay, so it may be a little difficult for you guys to see my pencil marking, but we're drawing a big X from one corner to each to get a big X on your canvas to find the center. All right, so once you find the center, we're gonna focus on, let me see if I can annotate. Can I? Well, okay, that's fine. So once you find your center, we're going to start by drawing the head of your butterfly. Okay, so the head is gonna be circular, and you wanna draw your head right above the center point, okay? And once you have your circle, you're going to draw the rest of the body, which is a long oval shape, okay? And you're going to bring that down to the bottom half of the center mark. So here's a better view of what I'm doing. All right. And of course, if your drawing skills are more advanced, feel free to keep going with your drawing. If I'm going too slow, just keep on going. So now we're going to draw the wings. Let's start with the top half of the wings. use your lines to guide the upper part of the wing, okay? So you wanna use that as a guide. Stretch your wing as far up to the top of your canvas as you prefer, you'd like. Your wings can be exaggerated and really long to have that beautiful effect to your butterfly. So once you find a place that you're comfortable with towards your corner of your canvas, you're gonna round out the wing and bring the wing down. And remember that the lines don't need to be straight, okay? We wanna keep organic lines while we're drawing our butterfly, because organic is just gives a more natural effect to your painting. And if you wanna do the same on the other side, round it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask during the process. I like to add nice little curves to the wings. So here I have the top wings done. Now I'm gonna work on the bottom wings, and the bottom wings are a lot more round. And as you can see, they meet the middle of the top wings, the middle part. So I'm gonna bring that down. All right, so we're gonna focus on the details of the butterfly wings a little later. We're just gonna get our first drawing, our brief drawing of the butterfly on the canvas first. And like I said, don't worry about your lines being super perfect or straight, because once we start painting, those lines are gonna kind of disappear. All right. Is everyone doing well with their drawing? So now let's start prepping our paints. We're gonna go color by color, and we're gonna start with the backgrounds. So like you see here and in my smaller example, I mixed the lighter blues closer to the wings, and I let the darker chromatic blue on the corners. And I'm gonna tell you guys how we can mix these colors and get these colors right. So we're starting with the backgrounds. So the two colors you're gonna need will be this color. It is called the Pitholocani. I'm saying it wrong for sure, but it's not the ultramarine. You're gonna be using the other blue with the long, complicated scientific name to it. Then you're gonna be using white. So these two colors are the first colors we're gonna be using today. So go ahead and dab a nice portion of the blue and a nice portion of the white. I'm gonna show you guys how I'm gonna set it up. I'm not gonna put the paint in the center of my palette because we wanna leave room for all the other colors. So I'm putting my colors in the corner of my palette.
Tiffany, it might be easier. Could you stop the share screen so that they can
Oh
see
yeah,
you
let's stop
bigger?
that for now. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Okay, so now once you guys have your paints on your palettes, we're going to start with the white, okay? Since we're gonna keep the area around the butterfly the lightest color, you're going to dab your brush, and your brush is number 1, so it's the biggest flat brush that you guys have. Brush number 1. So you're going to dip this brush just a tad, just a little tiny dip, okay? So you don't want too much because we want to keep this color really light, okay? So just a little tap. And you're gonna set that aside, and you're gonna get a lot of white. So you're gonna scoop a nice chunk of white and mix that in.
Sorry to interrupt, Tiffany. If anybody's having trouble viewing, you can just go to the 3 little dots and pin Tiffany, and her screen will be large. Thank you, Tiffany.
Of course. All right. So if you even want it lighter, just keep adding more white. We want to keep this a blue tint, okay? So tinted colors are mainly mixed with white. It's a fun fact about painting and color mixing. Okay, so once you have that mixed up, you want to dip a little water and wet your paint more, because the water is what keeps this paint wet. It keeps this paint alive. It keeps it from drying out. And start by very loosely painting this color around your butterfly. Don't make it perfect. Keep your brush strokes blotchy, okay? And just outline your butterfly with this color. You see I'm going very loose. Now, if you find that your paint starts to dry out a little bit, don't be afraid to mix more. Just keep the consistency of the light blue all around the butterfly. And remember, the water is your best friend, okay? The water keeps the paint wet, and it helps you kind of spread out the paint a little more. So as you can see, I have my blue and my white, and every time I need a little more, I just kind of dip it back in. And it's okay if you get some of the paint in your butterfly. I always think it's nicer when the colors kind of intersect with each other and overlap. It creates more realness, in my opinion, more character, more motion when it's a little more messier. All right, so once you have this beautiful light blue wrapped around your butterfly, you're going to now switch it up and use more blue, Okay, you want to get a darker blue and less white. So you're just gonna dip a little white into it, but you want to keep like a nice darker blue, more chromatic blue for the outer parts of the canvas. So with that being said, you're going to remember, dip some water every now and again to blend and to keep the paint nice.
Anyone channeling Bob Ross?
I watched many Bob Ross videos before this. This is actually my first time doing a painting lesson like this, so I'm glad you can see the reference.
So now I will throw the darker blue. Okay.
How's everyone doing?
We're doing
Doing good?
yeah.
All right. So if you have now completed the darker part of the canvas, I want you guys to go back in with your white. And if you need to add more white paint, go for it. Now we want it to be, we're returning back to our light blue. Okay, so it's mostly white. I put a new dab of white so that way I can keep a super tinted blue going. Okay, and I'm gonna go back in to closer to my butterfly and just keep kind of blending in where the lighter blue and the darker blue meet. Really loose, messy brush strokes here because it's just easier this way mentally, not to stress yourself out with blending perfectly.
That's not coming out too much. Not too much dark here.
All right. So once you start feeling content with your background, you can dip a little more water on your brush and wipe it on your towel. And use your wet brush with not so much paint to kind of just blend a little more loosely. And since we're on a time limit, feel free to go back into your painting later. I really enjoy doing that because you can kind of let the paint dry a little, take a step back, and then go back and see where you want things to be lighter or darker on your painting. So I'm gonna go with some straight up white. There's just a little bit of blue from my brush, and I'm gonna make it a little brighter around my butterfly. Now I'm getting really messy with it, and I'm like allowing all these blues to kind of seep into my butterfly. And it's okay because that's going to be covered eventually. So it's better that it's entering your butterfly a little rather than leaving the white canvas around it. All right. So once you're done, go ahead and clean your brush and your water. Since I have actually a lot of extra blue left on my palette, I'm just gonna take the blue that's not mixed and dab it in the corners of my painting to just add some contrasts to the blue background. Just the corners though, keep it really minimal. How are you guys doing? I hear some sighs.
Yeah. Those of us who are challenged artistically.
Remember, don't worry about it being perfect. You know, I actually think it's better, especially if you're not a regular painter, to just kind of go a little more quickly, because then that leaves less room in your mind for judgment on your piece and your painting. Because I know it's very easy to judge yourself when you're painting, but this way it can be a little more therapeutic. Okay. So now I'm going to move on. We're going to be switching up our colors. So now you're going to need the colors. Okay, so you're going to need your lemon yellow.
Some the white lemon yellow.
All right, you're going to need your mid yellow.
Yeah.
And lastly, you will need your scarlet. So we're going to be mixing 3 tones. We're going to have a bright yellow, an orange, and then a reddish orange. Okay. So you're going to dab these paints on your palette. I'm putting these on the other side of my palette, or not the complete other side, but away from the other colors, because I don't want any blue to seep into this. So here I have my scarlet, mid yellow, and my lemon yellow. And I'm gonna mix these colors on this side of my palette, just to be sure that blue doesn't get into these. So we're gonna be creating, let me share my screen for a moment so I can refer to what we're gonna be painting. So we're gonna focus on painting the wings this orange. So if you can see in this reference photo, there's different shades of this orange. There's like yellows in there, there's darker oranges. So I'm going to show you guys a cool technique to get these colors on your butterfly without it being super tedious and you know, in the line kind of thing. So you're going to be using your brush. The number is 10. So it's a flat brush. It's the second biggest flat brush. So the number is 10. And you're gonna start with dabbing into your lemon yellow, okay? My brush is a little hard. Okay. So yeah, dab into your lemon yellow and dab into your mid yellow, okay? And you're gonna mix those two together. You're gonna get a nice yellow color. Starting with this color, you're going to kind of, we're gonna make the yellowest part of the butterfly towards the body, okay? And we're doing this color first because yellow is the brightest color. And if we were to put any other color under the yellow, it wouldn't be as bright. So just kind of spread this yellow out. Feel free to let the paint spread and kind of loosen and kind of disappear as you get further down your wing, because we're going to be going over this color with the orange. So just keep on spreading it out. I'm going to keep on mixing the two colors together as it dries. All right, so once I have my yellow on my wings, I'm going to very, very gently dip my brush into the scarlet color, very little, because I want to mix an orange. So as we know, yellow and red makes orange. So just a little dab, because we don't want the red to take over our yellow. So just a tad bit, and you can keep on mixing in the yellow with the scarlet, but you definitely want more yellow than you want scarlet. I'm getting a nice bright orange color, and I'm gonna blend that. And remember, you want to keep loose strokes, okay? You want to see your brush strokes in this. So I'm gonna blend that towards the middle of my wing, and I want to keep the initial yellow that we put. I want to keep that there, okay? I don't want to completely crowd it with orange. All right, so we want to go darker now. Now we want to get a little more red on our palette and get a darker orange, a brighter, more chromatic orange. All right, so dip some water, and this is gonna go on the outer part of your wings. I'm starting to run out of some yellow, so I'm just gonna recharge my palette with some more yellow. What's so amazing about painting is that no one will ever paint the way you paint. We all have a unique way of applying paint to a canvas, and that's what makes art so amazing, is that no one will ever paint like you. And we can all paint the same thing, but everyone will have a different painting. All right. How's everyone feeling? Are you guys liking your progress? Yeah, awesome. I'm sure everyone's piece looks beautiful. Does anyone want to show me their progress? I'd love to see what you guys are working on, what you guys are doing. Nice. Very nice, Diana. I like yours. It's looking beautiful. Wow. Michael, very nice. I love your daughter's creativity, and I love how you choose to be a little more creative with the colors in the background. Wow, Miss Sheriff, looking good. Very nice. Leslie, that looks really great. Beautiful. I love what you guys are doing. I love the way you guys blend differently. It's so beautiful. Awesome. So I'll give you guys just one more moment to finalize your blending. It is 5:21. We are most likely definitely gonna go over time. So if you don't have anywhere to go, that's awesome. We're gonna be here. But if you do have to go, this will be recorded so you can continue your painting later when you have more time. But for now, we continue. Now, if you are done with your butterfly and we wait another minute or two for people to finish their butterflies, you guys can always go back into your backgrounds with for a few minutes if you wanna, which I'm gonna do. I'm gonna brighten up a little more around my butterfly with some white. Or if there's just any other part of your canvas that you feel like you need to give some love to, go ahead and give that part of your canvas some love.
All right.
I'd like to see Eddie's.
Yeah, I want to see Eddie's too.
I don't know, he's holding back.
Wow.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
I love how you let the butterfly take over the whole canvas. That looks awesome. Okay, so now moving on, we're gonna start painting the darkest part of the butterfly. We're not gonna use black though, even though I'm gonna share the screen really quickly. Even though the outer part of the butterfly appears to be black, I don't like using black in my paintings because there's other ways to create dark, beautiful browns that are the darkest part, and it just kind of unites all the other colors you use when you choose to mix colors together to create your black or dark brown color instead of just putting the black right on there. So the way we're going to mix our darkest browns is going to be with the colors Burnt Umber. So I'm sure you guys have heard before that when you mix a bunch of colors together, you always turn out getting that brown color. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to apply Burnt Umber, my upper right corner of my palette. And I'm also going to put some, you guys can use, if you already have some blue left over from the background, you can use that blue to mix with your burnt umber. And then you're also gonna mix your scarlet color with your burnt umber. So if you still have extra paint from those parts of your palette, feel free to use those. If not, just apply more. All right, so you can use your palette knife if you want to mix with your palette knives that you guys have. If not, that is the proper way to paint and mix colors, but it's totally cool too if you want to use your big brush to mix. So I'm gonna dabble into my burnt umber. I'm gonna add some blue. The blue is really gonna darken the color, the value of the color. And I'm gonna dip some red, which will then create more of like a dark purple, which is really nice. If you keep adding blue and red and this burnt umber, you'll just keep getting a nice dark value going there. Okay, so try to squeeze off all the paint you can from your brush. Keep this brush in handy because you might be mixing more with it, and there's also paint on it that you can dabble from. But for this part of the painting, we're going to be using a thinner brush. We're going to use the brush number 3. So it's the more longer bristle brush. Okay, this brush is really good to get in like lines and thinner brush strokes. Okay, so we're going to be using this brush for the lines. Okay, so we'll start. Well, actually, so we're going to use this brush, but we're also going to use another brush as well. And you can choose what brush you prefer. You guys might prefer the flat brush to do this. But if for the inner part of the flower where we're going to be drawing in the outlines, this brush is good too for the thinner lines. All right, so dip your brush in water. Get some of your paint on your brush. Okay. And water is really essential for this part because it's gonna thin out your paint, and it's good to thin out your paint so that way it's easier when applying it to the canvas. All right, so you're just gonna kind of start by creating an outline of this color on your butterfly. Now this part is probably gonna feel like the hardest part of the whole piece, and that's okay because it includes lines. But remember that like your lines don't need to be straight, they don't need to be perfect. And I'm holding my brush at an angle as well. I'm not holding it like this. I'm kind of holding it towards the end. That gives your wrists more ability to move and create different strokes. And you're gonna also use this color to fill in the body of your butterfly.
Tiffany, what number brush is that?
This is number 3.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. When painting the body of the butterfly, see, I'm bringing my hand kind of like up above the canvas here, so that way I can get like a nice thin point. Something I learned in painting is that you really got to work your hands like all around the canvas in order to get these different lines and shapes going. So I get creative with your arm movement. It really helps. I'm gonna go back in and start remixing this color because it is kind of drying out for me. See, I'm also grabbing paint from this brush and then dabbling back. Now, if you want thicker brush strokes, you can put more pressure on the brush as you're painting. And if you want to get thinner lines, you want to go lighter. You don't want to press down so hard on your canvas to get thinner lines. All right. Deep breaths. Remember to breathe while you're painting. Sometimes I catch myself holding my breath and I'm like, oh wait, I need to breathe. So yeah, deep breaths while painting helps strengthen your concentration as well, actually. So in the meantime, I'm going to add some more paint on my palette because we're gonna need this color for the lines in the wings that we're gonna create. So I'm gonna take a moment to do that. Does anyone know any fun facts about monarch butterflies that they want to share? Go ahead. Michael, do you guys want to share any fun facts?
Okay, so the national butterfly is actually the monarch in the USA.
Nice. So the
And
monarch
it's also
butterfly,
poisonous to birds.
really?
What does it eat?
Milkweed. It eats milkweed.
Milkweed, that's right. And
Which
they
is
lay their
kinda
eggs on milkweed.
I actually have milkweed outside.
Oh yeah? So you have
And
tons of monarch butterflies and caterpillars in your yard.
facts about me,
Right.
and it's about monarchs too.
Tell us.
The first butterfly I ever raised was actually a monarch. I named it
Aw,
Star.
that's beautiful. You raised a monarch butterfly. That's amazing.
It was a while back.
That is absolutely incredible that you do that. I have some milkweed growing. It's still like a really young plant in my garden.
That's okay. It'll grow.
But
It'll get all the way one day.
yeah, I see monarchs around, so you're probably looking for it. A crazy thing about monarch butterflies is they migrate really far together
know.
across
Yeah, Canada to Mexico.
yes. They're really strong individuals. Okay, so if you guys are ready, I'm going to share my screen just so we can refer back again and take a note of the way the butterfly looks. Okay, so we're going to focus on painting these. I want to say they're rectangles, but they're really organic rectangle shapes. They even to me look like the chrysalis, you know, before they turn into butterflies. They look like cocoon shaped, you know. So keep that in mind when you are drawing these lines. Yeah, so I'm gonna guide you guys. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and guide you guys through it. But remember, these rectangle shapes don't need to look perfect. Keep them organic. And remember that when you're painting, if you want a thinner line, you're going to add more water to your paint and you're not going to press down so hard to get your thin line. Okay, so I'm going to start with the top right wing. I want to keep my line pretty thin, so.
Are we still using brush number 3?
Yeah, this I recommend brush number 3. This brush will help you get those thinner lines. Okay. So we're gonna bring this out. And we're gonna stop. We're not gonna go all the way. We're gonna stop a little more than the middle of the wing. And then we're gonna go back to the center and bring another line outwards. Okay, and bring your brush to the same line that you just did and overlap it, but then you're gonna eventually separate it, the line, kind of like a wishbone. Okay, it's gonna have two legs. Okay. Then I'm going to connect the ends, the 2 points, the end of these lines together. It's going all the way down, connecting it. I'm also not forgetting to add water. This keeps the paint thin, so it's really important that you do that. And then I'm gonna create another line, very thin line. And round it out, connect it. Now, if you want, you can thicken the top of the butterfly wing just a little bit. Okay. And then go ahead and connect that little top section. So we have some nice organic rectangle, triangle shapes going on. Now I'm still on my top right wing. I'm going to thicken it out a little bit. And on the end here, I'm gonna make it pretty thick because this part of the wing doesn't have these crystallis rectangle shapes in it. All right, so now we're gonna add rectangle square shapes to the outer part of the wing. And then after those shapes, you can add even smaller little shapes, eventually blending into the thickest part of the wing on the side. And you're just gonna fill in the remainder. You can use a bigger brush to do this, a more like a flatter brush. I'm using 2 to just kind of like fill in the remaining part. Okay, so now you're going to repeat this on the left top wing. Once you do the first wing, you start getting the hang of it. It'll get a little easier to do the second. So I'm starting by kind of thickening up my line here. And I actually need to mix some more paint together too. So don't forget to do that as well. It definitely helps when you have a good amount of paint on your palette. All right. Moving on to the smaller rectangle shapes. All right. All right, so now moving on to the bottom half of your butterfly, the two bottom wings. I'm actually gonna start these wings using my number 2 brush, which is a little thicker, to kind of get that border, that thick border of the wing. And I'm gonna do the same for the other side, just kind of thicken up the brown border. Okay, So once I do that, I'm gonna go back to my number 3 brush. And I'm going to start creating those rectangle shapes again. These for the bottom half of the wing, these rectangles are a lot more elongated. They're longer rectangles. These were the top 2 wings were, I would say, a little more thicker. So we're gonna make these smaller, and they're not gonna all be rectangles. We're gonna start with 2 little triangle shapes closer to the corner, upper left and upper right corner of the wing in this area. So if you guys want to take a look really quick, I'm gonna create a little triangle shape. Okay. Let me bring it closer. Okay. So once I get those shapes going, I'm gonna start creating my organic rectangle shapes. I mean, yeah, rectangle shapes.
I just want to interrupt. I know we're going past time. If anybody has to leave, I am recording this and I will put it up on our YouTube channel, hopefully by tomorrow afternoon. So if anybody needs to finish their painting, if they have to leave. Otherwise, everybody's more than welcome to stay on and finish their paintings.
Hey, Debbie, it's Patty. I do have to leave, but if you guys take the best kind of group picture you can with your artwork at the end, that would be kind of awesome.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks. At least give it a try.
Will do.
Okay, I appreciate it. It's looking great, by the way.
I can't wait to see everyone's paintings. All right, so I keep on forming these shapes. Now, once I get to the center of my wing, I'm gonna create another little triangle shape. And then I'm gonna bring that into another crystallis rectangle shape. And then I'm gonna add another kind of triangle and then close that off. And I'm just gonna fill in this other part. And you know, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. You can definitely intuitively flow with the different shapes in your wing. Kind of like what I'm doing now. I'm just creating little smaller shapes just after these bigger rectangle shapes. And I'm gonna fill it in. Okay, now I'm gonna move on to my last wing. And guys, after this part, you can take a deep breath because this is the hardest part of the painting. It definitely requires so much concentration with your line work. Thanks to everyone who stayed. I know sometimes we can get into a trance while painting. It's hard to step away once we get going. All right. So I'm closing off my last wing. Also adding a thicker line over here. All right. So once I do that, I'm gonna wash my brushes because we're done with this brown color now. Okay. So now we're gonna go into the details. These are gonna be the final parts of making this painting. In my opinion, the details are the funnest part because it really just adds like a highlight to your work of art. Oh, and before we move on to that, we got to add the antennas. So use that nice dark brown you had to just kind of make some pretty antennas. You can get creative with it if you want to do a little swirl. Add some pretty swirly antennas. Okay. So now I'm going to need white and a little bit of burnt sienna, white, burnt sienna, and a little bit of mid yellow. Your mid yellow might be dry at this point on your palette. If not, you can add some water to it. It might loosen up. You can use some of that. We're not going to need a lot of the yellow and the burnt sienna. So just little dabs of it on your palette will do, but we will need a good amount of white. So I have a little corner of my palette that's not used. I'm going to do it there. All right, so I'll show you guys. I have white and a little dab of burnt sienna, and then I have my yellow in this corner that's still kind of wet that I'm gonna try and get some in, but you don't need a lot of it. So, and for this, you'll be using brush 0. brush 0, it has this kind of tip. Brush 0. All right, so if everyone is ready, go ahead and dip your brush in some white, bring it out, and you're gonna tap very lightly, tap your burnt sienna, mix that into your white. We're gonna create like an off-white color for the white dots that go on the outer borders of your butterfly. And then I'm gonna literally tap the yellow and mix some yellow into it. Now this part is fun. You're just going to add, and you want to make sure you're starting with the first wing you started with, because that wing is definitely dry by now. Leave the wing that you just finished for last, so we give that wing some time to dry. Okay, I'm gonna actually add like a little more white. And I'm gonna just gracefully and organically add some white shapes to the border of my butterfly wings. So some squares, some circles, some ovals. So I'm gonna keep on doing this on all the wings. Adding different variation of size. Okay. So once you have completed that, I'm actually going to use the same color. So it's the white with a little tap of burnt sienna and a little tap of mid yellow. I'm going to use this color to kind of just bring a highlight to all the beautiful shapes we created in the wings. And I'm very, very, very lightly, I'm going to bring it closer for you guys. brushing in the highlight, okay? It's like little strokes of highlight. And this is gonna like give a very luminous effect to your painting when you add little touches of highlights like this. Because in real life, things are always reflecting and there's always light reflecting on things that are real, even butterflies. You don't have to do it to all of your rectangles. Just do it to what you feel is right. Whatever's calling you. If you dab your brush in some water, that will loosen up the paint too, so it won't be so opaque. All right. So there's just 2 more steps to complete and finalize your beautiful monarch butterfly painting. That will be to clean your brush, and now you're gonna use straight up white, okay? Straight up white. Don't mix the white with anything. Get the white from the tube. And you're gonna add a white highlight to all the little dots that you made in the outer border of the wings, just to give some value and some brightness to those shapes. Okay, so you're not filling in the whole shape with the white, you're just kind of doing little dabs of white. To illuminate these shapes a little more. So I'll bring it closer for you guys so you can see. Okay, I'm over here. All right. Okay. So these are little details that really do make a difference in the final outcome of your piece. And it's really interesting when painting because you realize that nothing is really ever just one color. There's always many colors in all the aspects of anything, really. Especially like this butterfly, the monarch butterfly does appear to be orange with black stripes, but really that orange is a mixture of yellows and reds. Okay. Now, if you still have some of that brown available on your palette that we used before, if it's still kind of wet, you can go ahead and mix some white into that to get a grayish color. And it's gonna look kind of purple, maybe. If you can do that, go ahead and do that. this is gonna be a little highlight color for the body of your butterfly. So for the body of your butterfly, you're gonna create a little bit of a highlight on the edge of the body, all around the edge of the body. You're gonna leave the center of the body that dark brown. You can kind of see what I did. It's so subtle as well. It's not a necessary step that you have to do, but if you want to bring more depth into your painting, that's an option. And you can even add this lighter color, more white around the borders. Okay. Now I promise this is the last step to your painting. You're gonna add some black on your palette. Okay. We're gonna use this black to just kind of define the borders of the butterfly very, very lightly. Okay, you don't want to add thick lines of black, but this will just help separate a little more, bring more depth into your butterfly. So once you have the black, you're gonna use you can use your brush 0. So it's the same brush we've been using. You can use brush 0. And remember, it's really important. I know I keep saying it, but if you want to get thin lines, you don't want to put a lot of pressure when painting. You want to keep a very light hand. So now you're just going to add black to the outer edges of your rectangles that you created. So you're not going to be outlining the whole shape. It's just the outer part of the shape. This is just going to give a little more depth in your shapes and your colors. Okay. And I'm also going to apply black around the borders of my wings. So I'm adding the black on top of the brown that's already there. I'm not creating like a new line outside of the wing. I'm applying the line inside the wing. But this will just help as well, kind of define the shape a little more. Wow, you guys are troopers for staying on this long with me. Painting takes a lot of time, and sometimes you just can't rush a masterpiece.
It's very relaxing.
Right? I agree. All right, so once you complete that step, that's pretty much what you do to paint a monarch butterfly. And you guys are all artists, so it's really important to sign your name on your work. I'm gonna sign my initials in the lower right-hand corner. You can use any color you want to sign your initials or your name, however you'd like. So how's everyone doing? Who is almost done with their painting? Eddie's almost done, but he has an advantage over us all. Wow. I love that. That is amazing. You did such an awesome job. What's your name?
Tell her your name.
My name's Alexandre.
What's your name?
Abby.
Abby?
Abby, yes.
Wow, Abby, you have some amazing artistic skills.
I go through buying Abby because most people call me Abby. Real name's Abigail.
Abigail?
Abby and Abigail are literally the same thing. Abby's just a short way.
Right. Yeah, it's a short. Like people call me Tiff for short, like that. Well, I love your painting. I think you did an amazing job and you went really creative and added your own
Thank
flavor
you.
to it. You're welcome. Anyone else want to share what they have? No judgment here. Everyone's piece is amazing no matter what. Wow, Diana, that's looking beautiful. Debbie, yes. I love it. Oh, wow. Oh, there's two Dianas, both Dianas. Wow. Your pieces are awesome. Eddie just outdid us all. Look at that. These are so beautiful. Gwen, that looks amazing. Wow.
You're an awesome coach.
Thank you. I still haven't caught up
Great
with the
teacher.
back and the outlining, but
That's okay. That's like that's good for going back in later, you know, but you really do have the painting pretty much finished and it looks really good. Mari, yours looked beautiful as well. Wow, I feel so proud. Miss Barnes, I haven't seen yours. That is beautiful. You did an amazing job. You should not be ashamed of that painting. That painting is beautiful.
Can I get everybody to hold it up at the same time so I can do a screenshot?
oh, wait a minute. Let me fix my background.
Very far behind. This is how mine is, but
Everybody did fantastic.
Wow. Yeah, I'm actually amazed. This is amazing.
Awesome.
Wow.
Did she do it yet?
1 second.
Miss Foreman. Miss
Okay.
Foreman, show us your
I got it.
your painting.
Wait, I was standing up. I wasn't
Awesome
ready.
job, everyone.
Mine is awful. I'm not showing mine. Those are beautiful. Mine is horrible.
No, Miss Foreman, I want to
I
see
don't know. I'm
yours.
telling you, if I tell this to my kids tomorrow, they'd be honest. They tell me.
Did you get the picture, Debbie?
Can she do another
Yep,
one?
I got them.
Got
I
another
got
one
the
now?
pictures. It's awesome. We're good.
They're beautiful. They're
Awesome.
gorgeous.
Tiffany, do you want to walk us through how to take care of our supplies, how to clean up, and then
Yeah.
Oh,
take it out?
yeah, right.
So yeah, you guys did an amazing job. If you're not finished, you know what to do. You guys are definitely painters. So yeah, just go ahead and you're gonna wash your brushes in your water. You guys can clean your brush with any like regular soap is fine. That will keep the excess like paint inside your brush from hardening up. So that you can do. What else? Yeah, the tin foil with the paint, once you're finished with your painting, you can discard that, or you can keep it as a palette for your future paintings. That works as well. The tin foil lasts for a while, and the tin foil is great to use because it lets you see the colors a little more.
When's
then-
next class?
That
So
is actually a
after-
great question. Debbie is setting up for the next workshop a chocolate tasting with a local chocolatier.
Oh, that's good. I love that
If
one.
you sign up, you will receive your chocolate tasting package. Like,
Ooh.
trying to make it fun for you guys. And definitely, if you guys, did you guys have a good time on this one?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, so
very
I think we'll be
nice, very
doing more
relaxing.
painting in the future.
I thought, what better way to end the year than with chocolate? It is a plant.
And wine.
So let's
Right,
give
for
Tiffany a round
sure.
of applause. Tiffany, thank you so much. That was amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you, Tiffany. It's good.
Thank
Thank you guys.
Very relaxing.
You guys are amazing students
Thank you very much.
It was
and
wonderful.
amazing
guys.
teachers.
And we will see you for the next one. Those links are still up. You can still can to get them to sign up for a class with Tiffany for your